Well, last time I preached, I said I was going to go through James 1 through 18, and James chapter 3, 1 through 18, but I couldn't finish through it, so as you can tell, if I had dealt with that, then we would have been here for a while. So I want to finish up dealing with James chapter 3, just dealing with wisdom and the wisdom of Christians. Now, if you can read this, you're impressive, right, Brother Nick? If you can read, I asked him if he could read this word down here, and he said something like Iraq or something. And I was like, no, that's not Iraq. So Ezra. But let's deal with that. I'm going to go over it just verbally, but this is for me to help me out. If you want to see what I'm saying, you can take pictures, and I think Nick's going to have a picture of that on the internet later on, so that way people can follow along with me. So let's go to James chapter 3. We'll go to the Lord in prayer. James chapter 3. We'll start in verse 13 and finish up the chapter. Lord, I ask that you would bless this time, bless this Sunday school class. Lord, there's a lot to cover, but it's your word, so of course there is. And I ask that you would just give me wisdom as what to say, not just in the morning for Sunday school, but also for church service. Lord, I pray that you would guide and direct my tongue, my heart, my mind, and my soul. Thank you for loving me. I pray that you would just bless Hallelujah Side Baptist Church and draw us closer to you. I pray that you would keep us from sin and keep our hearts and minds dedicated on you and your word. In your name we pray, Lord Jesus. Amen. All right. James chapter 3, verse 13. We'll start. I'm going to go over the rest of the verses, and then I'm going to go verse by verse. So 13. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. Let's go to verse 13. What's it say? Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge? Who is a wise man? We start off with that concept. Who is wise? You know, when we first started dealing with the chapter, we were talking about the tongue, the anatomy of the tongue, and what the tongue can do and what it can't do, how it influences and how it destroys and how it builds up. The tongue is very influential, but now we're at verse 13. Who is a wise man? Who is wise? There are two kinds of wisdom in the world. There's the wisdom of the world, and there's the wisdom of God. A lot of people can look at that and say, who is a wise man, and very quickly declare that they themselves are wise. But God puts standards to this wisdom. God puts qualifications to this wisdom that they must obtain and keep to. Who is wise? Well, nobody. Nobody is wise without God.
That's right.
That's why the verse says endued. What does the word endued mean? It's the word endow.
Right.
To enrich or furnish with any gift, quality, or faculty. I'm going to say that again. Endued or endow is to enrich or furnish with any gift, quality, or faculty. To be wise is to understand that everything that you've been given has been given by God.
Yep.
And not by your own intellect, your own wisdom, the books that you have, the amount of times you visited Half Price Bookstore. That is not what defines your wisdom. Your wisdom is given from God.
That's right.
There are many people out there that don't have it. And it's when you can see the whole spectrum of things, you have to understand that God has given you that brain. The brain that you have in your head right now is God-given. The wisdom, that even the learning that you understand. You know, isn't it funny? Sometimes we look at things and we say, how in the world can't you get this? How do you not understand this? You really think we've evolved from nothing?
Right.
And you say it's science? Are you serious? Comes to being endowed. You see?
Yep.
Who is a wise man? What's the Bible say? The fool hath said in his heart, there is no God. Who is a wise man? The fool said in his heart, there is no God. Who is a wise man? The wise man is the man that's endowed, given the understanding of wisdom, of truth, given by God. But it doesn't stop there. It's not only important, it's not only good to just be endowed by God. We're all, to a certain level, endowed by God with a certain level of wisdom. But godly wisdom is what? Godly wisdom is meek. What's it say? Verse 13. Who is a wise man endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. You see, the wisdom of the world is proud. The wisdom of the world is a wisdom that keeps their selves in focus, keeps them as the pinnacle, as the image that you want them to remember. What they say, how eloquent they are, how verbose they are, who they show themselves to be. You look at certain people that are lost, and I tend to listen to them a lot, but you got Jordan Peterson, you got Ben Shapiro, both completely lost. They don't know Christ at all. They're very wise as far as the world is concerned. When the world looks at them, they say, oh, these guys make a lot of sense. They're very wise as far as the world is concerned. But one thing that you always notice with these guys is that they have a tendency to not speak in any sense of humility. Yeah, they may sound humble, but when they talk about themselves, humility is out the door. It's not about, they make it about themselves when a Christian needs to be humble. Why should a Christian be humble about his wisdom? Because it was endowed. You see? They're connected. A wise man, a quote-unquote wise man that has been given wisdom, that has believed that he has created his own wisdom by his knowledge and study and all that, will never be meek, will never be humble. He has no reason to be humble. He's the one that worked harder to get that knowledge. He's the one that studied longer to get that knowledge. He's the one that learned. While everybody else was dumb and stupid, he was the one that learned. But a Christian understands that the endowment of God provides humility unto the people that he or she spends themselves with. The Christian that is endowed and understands that they're endowed with the wisdom that they have is a Christian that also understands. The Christian that understands that fact is also humble with that fact.
That's right.
They're connected. Being wise and it being a gift of God provides the meekness that is to be appreciated by God himself. That God himself gave you that wisdom. So when you're giving it, you're not giving it as someone that has the authority rather than someone that knows the authority. There's a big difference. But let's keep on going. Out of a good conversation. I was thinking about the good conversation. Out of a good conversation. What does it say in verse 13? Let's go over it one more time. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. Good conversation. When we're dealing with good conversation, the focus is on God. You see? For the wise that are worldly, the focus is not on God. The focus is on self. Me. Listen to what I have to say. I'm a psychologist. I'm a this. I went to school for this long. I've studied this. I've done this for this many years. I. But when we look at this, good conversation, there's an opposite side of that. It's called a bad conversation. It's very deep. Good conversation, bad conversation. Bad conversation relates to pride, arrogance, focus on self, whereas good conversation relates to the focus on God. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge? Let him show a good conversation with meekness. This is the good conversation. It's showing that God himself has given you the wisdom to be able to impart that to others, not to feel higher than others.
Right.
When we diagram this chapter 3, what we see is two differentials: the wisdom of the world and the wisdom of God. The wisdom of the world and the wisdom of God. And the flesh and the spirit. The flesh and the spirit. When we start off in verse 13, we understand that that's what he's dealing with. Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? He's dealing with the church. He's talking to the church and he's saying there are two groups of people sitting right here. There are some people that are lost. There are some people that are saved. Most people are saved, hopefully. But that's what we're dealing with. Two kinds of wisdom. Good wisdom, good conversation, bad conversation. Godly wisdom, worldly wisdom. Let's go to verse 14. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. Bitter envying. This is what Erwin Lutzer said. It's saying God has no right to blame someone else more than you. It's saying God has no right to bless someone else more than you. I can't even read it. It's saying God has no right to bless someone else more than you.
Yeah.
Think about that. Bitter envying. You see, what we'll see, and I'll continue to repeat this, but what we'll see is worldly wisdom is a way to elevate yourself higher than everybody else. To make sure that you're at the highest pedestal. To make sure that you look down on people. To make sure that you're better than someone else. To make sure that what you've done accomplishes to where you are more successful than everybody else. You can look at everybody else and say, look what I did. I'm above you. King of the Mountain. You guys ever heard of that game, King of the Mountain? That's how life is for people that seek worldly wisdom. King of the Mountain. I'm the smartest guy around. I can teach you everything. Bitter envying. There are some Christians that have a problem with what they don't have. They delve into this realm of emptiness, and they look at what God hasn't given them as opposed to what God has given them. Just like I was telling you, God has no right to bless someone else more than you. How dare God do what he did? Who is God to bless this person with this and not give it to me? That is the epitome of pride. Strife, sinful competition, argumentation, due to what? Envying. Envying leads to strife. Envying is the feeling, is the emotion. Strife is the action. Sinful competition, argumentation due to envy. You know what? You did this, I'm going to one-up you. You're a one-upper. You ever heard of that term, one-upper? Oh, yeah. You always have to do better. Your story has to be better, more grand. Man, my fish was this big. Oh, man, you need to go fishing with me. Because, man, you'll get bigger ones. So, let's go to verse 15. What's verse 15? This wisdom descendeth not from above. God gives you clear understanding, clear communication that this wisdom, though it seems like it makes sense, man, dreams really do come true. You just got to achieve, you got to work hard, and everything you dream of will happen, and you'll be the best. Make sure that you're the best. It makes sense as far as worldly wisdom is concerned. But what's verse 15 says? This wisdom descendeth not from above, but he tells you where it comes from. but is earthly. Earthly what? What's that mean? Only wise in earthly minds. Earthly. That the people of this world, not the people of God, but the people of this world find value in this. Earthly, sensual, or natural. It's okay. You're only human. It's that concept. It's natural. Hey, man, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we but die. It's okay. It's all right. We're only human. Sensual, devilish. The devil's wisdom being used. It desires intense being used. It serves his desires, interests, and wants. I'm going to repeat that because it didn't make sense. The devil's wisdom being used. It serves his desires, interests, and wants. Do you know when you're using worldly wisdom that you're doing what the devil wants you to do? When I'm going to repeat that because I should repeat it. When you're using worldly wisdom, you're doing exactly what the devil wants you to do. You know, it's funny. I tend to talk to people, and one of the main things that I deal with them about when they struggle is reasoning. Reasoning. You know, the things of God, the wisdom of God seldom uses reasoning. God's ways are not our ways. Neither are his thoughts our thoughts. They're high above our thoughts. You see, God uses a different scale to judge what wisdom is. And we look at it and we say, well, this makes sense. This makes sense. It's okay. God's not going to hold us against you. It's earthly, it's sensual, it's devilish. It's clear communication in verse 15. But the wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying, and this is the result of it, verse 16, this is the result of verse 15, from 13 to 15. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. The end result, confusion, instability in families, churches, work. Confusion. You want to use worldly wisdom. You want to envy what someone else has. You have strife with others and people at your church and people at your work. Well, the end result is confusion, instability in your family, church, work. When you put your wisdom above everybody else's, including God's, what you're saying is, I think I know how to run things. When the reality is, you don't know how to run things. You are putting yourself in the place of God, which will inevitably lead to confusion. You will be confused. You will be unstable in your family, in your church, in your work. It's promise. Number 7, every evil work. Every evil work. What? What's it say? For where envying and strife is, there is confusion and every evil work. Every evil work. This is a big deal. Why is it such a big deal? Because it's every evil work. Think about that word. Think about that concept. What is that really relating to? You know what that's relating to? Bitter envying and strife. Where envying and strife is, there's confusion and every evil work. What is envying? What is the foundation of envy? Pride. Pride. Yeah. Pride is the thought that the devil had. I mean, why did the devil fall? Yep. Pride. That's right. What is the devil pushing on us? Pride. Yep. Mm-hmm. Foundational pride. Every evil work is foundational. Right. That you depend on these things. You depend on your achievement, your betterment before the world. There's nothing wrong to be good and great. But be great understanding that God is the one that made you great. That's right. Sorry, I'm preaching instead of teaching. But God is the one that made you great. God is the one that made you wise. God is the one that blessed you with those things. It wasn't you. It was God. Hey, Wake up tomorrow, God can take away everything from you.
That's right.
And then talk to me about how you did what you did.
Yep.
God can give you Alzheimer's. Then what? Tell me how wise you are when you forget the previous 5 minutes.
Yep.
Tell me how wise you are.
Yep.
The Lord giveth, the Lord taketh away. Foundational pride is a dastardly thing in the lives of a Christian.
Yep.
You know why it's so dastardly? It's because, especially in a Christian's life, in a worldly person's life, it's understandable. But in a Christian's life, after everything God's done for you, why in the world would you pound your chest and think you did something? After everything God's done for you, you're going to say, I did something. Look what I did. Every evil work. Well, if you don't believe me, you can always test and try it. Hypothesize about it. Figure it out. Do some trials and errors and see how it works out for you. Worldly wisdom assumes pragmatism for self-gratification is progress. It is willingly short-sighted. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Worldly wisdom assumes pragmatism. What is pragmatism? The end justifies the means. No matter what, you can do whatever you want as long as you achieve what you want to achieve. Do whatever it takes, do it as long as you get that goal. As long as you get that thing. Who cares about conviction? Who cares about right and wrong? Do whatever you have to do to achieve that certain pinnacle. Worldly wisdom assumes pragmatism for self-gratification. Is progress. It is willingly short-sighted. Everything here that you see is short-sighted. Millionaires are... The person that strives to be a millionaire works to that goal, but once they are, if they live by these standards, they just want more. They're never content. You see, they're never happy. They're never satisfied by what God's given them. Whether God's given you a hot dog or a steak, whether God has given you a Lamborghini or a Toyota, it doesn't matter. God's blessed you. But it doesn't stop there. Go to verse 17. We've dealt with the worldly wisdom. We've dealt with the wisdom that God's not pleased with. Let's deal with godly wisdom. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure. First pure. This is so important. First. He starts dealing with verses. Verse 17, verse 18. And he starts dealing with topics. Pure, peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated. But before he deals with anything, he deals with one thing. Pure. Pure. Innocent, modest, perfect, chaste. What's the deal? What's it say? But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable. What's that mean? That means before you can have peace with yourself and others, you have to be pure within yourself. How are you ever going to be peaceful? How are you ever going to be peaceable with others when you're not peaceable with yourself? God's telling you, God's giving you the map of how to be peaceable, be pure. What sin is in your life that's keeping you from being peaceable? What is keeping you from being peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy, full of good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy? Go to the first part. Pure. Are you clean? Are your sins before God forgiven? Have you went to God and asked Him to forgive you of your sins? Are you right before God right now? Right now, are you right before God? If you are not right before God right now, as you're listening on YouTube, then you are not going to be peaceable. You wonder why you're not peaceable. You wonder why you're hard to be around. You're wondering why when you try to be peaceable, it's not working. Why is it not working? Because you're not pure.
Yep.
There's something in your life that's not right. And because it's not right, everything else falls. It's a foundational thing for you to live holy and righteous before God.
That's right.
It's a foundational thing for you to do right before God. Why? Because for a Christian, if you're doing right before God, it gives you a supreme peace.
Yep. Sure does.
Now I'm just going to ask you, doesn't it? If you're doing right before, one of the most miserable things for a Christian and myself when I'm not right before God and I try to act like I try to act like I'm right before God.
Yep.
When I try to fake it, it is so miserable. It is the most miserable thing ever.
Yep.
The answer to that is purity. Clean yourself. Let the Lord clean him. Let the Lord clean yourself, rather. Make sure that you go to God and you ask for forgiveness. Make it right. Repent and stop doing it. You fall 2 months later, get it right. Get it right. You're never going to be peaceable to others unless you're peaceable with yourself. Unless you have peace within yourself to endow that to others, to give that to others. How are you going to give peace to someone else and you don't have peace inside of you? That doesn't make sense. That equation doesn't. How am I going to give you $100 if I don't have $100 in my pocket? It just doesn't make sense. The equation doesn't work. Make sure that you're pure. Make sure that you're innocent. You're modest. You're perfect. You're chaste. Which leads to being peaceable. Peaceable with others and peaceable with yourself. Let's keep on going. First pure, then peaceable. Gentle. What's the word gentle? If you can't be gentle or patient with others or with our hearts, you can't be at peace. Without being pure, you can't be peaceable. Without being peaceable, you can't be gentle. You can't be kind to others. It's hard for you to be kind to others if you can't take care of the first thing and then the second thing. So if you're pure, then now be peaceable. Now that you're pure, give that to others. Give that peaceable spirit to others. Show what it is to have godly wisdom. Be peaceable to others. Now be gentle. Be kind to others. Easy to be entreated. What is that word, entreated? I started thinking about that word and I started looking up different terms of definition for that word and I couldn't figure it out. And I finally came to it. It's kindly persuasive. Easy to be entreated. You're kindly persuasive. You ever met people that when they talk to you, it's not me, but you ever meet people when they talk to you, but man, they know how to talk to you in such a way that is not demeaning to you. It's not talking down to you, but they help you and they give you understanding and they lead you along the way, not as if they're in front of you, but they're beside you. Like they put their arm around your shoulder and they walk with you like, hey, look, I know you felt this way about it and I understand why you felt that way about it, but let me help you out with something that I've learned. I know one person that's phenomenal with that was my previous pastor, E.C. Fowler. He's very good with that. He's very found a way to overcome my pride or my thoughts very slow in conversation. Whenever I brought up a topic to him or something that could be contentious, he never answered me right there. He waited about a week or 2 weeks. Sometimes I forgot I even brought up the question to him. But I never went away thinking, man, he really reamed me out. He really was disappointed in me. He was really angry with me. I never felt that way. He was kindly persuasive as a pastor. There's been many pastors in my past that have not been that way. But he was kindly persuasive, easy to be entreated, full of mercy, acts of compassion, a heart full of care. Are you full of mercy this morning? You know, it's one thing to have an act of compassion or acts of compassion and a heart full of care, but it's quite another thing to do the things that you act like you're doing. That's why number 6 is full of good fruits. It's not good enough to act compassionate or to say you're compassionate. It's quite another to show that you're compassionate. It's the cause and the effect. The cause is full of mercy. The effect is full of good fruits. Full of mercy is the cause. Full of good fruits is the effect. It's the evidence of compassion. It's like a bag. Like you ever go grocery shopping, and if you're like me, I don't know, we're all men here right now. So you get those groceries. I want to get all of them one trip, without a doubt. I don't want to go outside again. I want to get those groceries. I want to go inside. So I take, 10 bags or 7 bags in one hand, 7 bags in the other, and, close the trunk with my elbow, and I walk. And that's exactly what this is. You see, it's both. You have to have both. You have to have it with both hands. It's the cause and effect. It's to do it all right, you have to have it all in your hand. Having both mercy and good fruits. They're one and the same. You can't have a quarter without a heads and a tails. They're both synonymous. They're both together. They're both combined. You can't say you have mercy if you don't have good fruits. And having good fruits, I don't say false fruits, I'm saying good fruits. Good fruits. Genuine fruits. Not fake fruits like the lost world does. I'm talking about good fruits, godly fruits. If you're having good fruits, it's because you're full of mercy. You see, they both go hand in hand. They both are connected. They're both together. Just like having, you want to get all the groceries at one time. If you're going to have good fruits, you have to have mercy. If you want to have mercy, you have to have good fruits. They're both together. They're both synonymous. Verse 7, without partiality. I'm going to go quickly with these. Without partiality, what's that? Respecter of persons. Without partiality, that means I don't care how much money you have. I don't care how much power you have. I don't care what your last name is. I don't care how many pictures are taken of you. I don't care who you are outside of God giving you those gifts. I see who you are because God has put you in that place, not because you're better than someone else. I think it's an important thing, and I think, I don't say this to sound prideful, I hope it's not, is that God has blessed me with this ability to not care how much money people have, how much, like we went to go see David Phelps. He's a Christian singer, very good singer, and my brothers paid for this thing and this concert for my birthday, and I went to go see him, and he sang great, wonderful, and I met him in person, and I go, hey, just like I'm saying hi to anybody else here, like, hey, how you doing? Some people though, man, you let them meet a person that they really highly admire, oh man, they almost worship that person. Mm-hmm. It's close to it. I mean, you talk about even the NBA Finals, people are like going crazy about LeBron James as something amazing, or when Michael Jordan was around, like he was a god. Without partiality, that means no matter who you are, respect and care for everybody. Don't have a higher respect for those that have more, or those that are more influential, or those that are more powerful than a person that may not. Care for everybody equally. Without partiality. Make sure that you're not partial. That's a hard thing for some people. So without partiality is with respect of persons, but without hypocrisy. What's without hypocrisy? Without hypocrisy is respecter of yourself. You get it? Don't be a respecter of persons and don't be a respecter of yourself. Don't look at yourself more highly than you should. Understand that you're a worm. You're dust. God can breathe and you'll be salt if He wants you to be salt. Understand that. Don't respect others. Don't have a higher respect for others than you should, and don't have a higher respect for yourself than you should. Understand where you stand in the light of God. Number 9, fruit of righteousness begins with peace by those that create it. The fruit, or the evidence of righteousness, begins with peace by those that create it. Being peaceful to others because you have peace in your heart. That's the key. That's the key to wisdom. Start with what? Being peaceful to others because you have peace in your heart. Make sure you have peace in your heart. Make sure that your heart is right before God. If you want, and this is a hard thing. This is a tremendously hard thing. Whenever I read this, and I went over this passage and I was considering and I was thinking, who reminds me? I don't know many people that I can look at this where I was like, oh yeah, that's you. And then I started thinking, who are the closest people that resemble this? And it hit me, it dawned on me. You ever meet those really old Christians? They're old people too, typically. But they're very old, and they're wise, and they smile, and they're happy. They're happy with life. Yeah. You ever meet those people? I started thinking that, and I think they have gotten to the place where they understand that. They understand the degree of godly wisdom. Worldly wisdom is what can I do for myself? Godly wisdom is what can I do for others? Go to John chapter 3 and verse 30. Go to John chapter 3 and verse 30. This is what John the Baptist said about Jesus Christ. He must increase, but I must decrease. That's a big verse right there. But it's big in weight. It's easy to read. Not very many words. 6 words, or 7 words. But the weight of that is very difficult. It's a daily decision. He must increase, but I must decrease. Being peaceful to others because you have peace in your hearts. Godly wisdom prefers others to itself. It is unnatural for fallen flesh, but provides eternal results. I'm going to repeat that one more time. Godly wisdom prefers others to itself. It is unnatural for fallen flesh, but provides eternal results. Worldly wisdom assumes pragmatism for self-gratification is progress. It's willingly short-sighted. You're either going to think of the now and now, the nasty now and now, or eternity. You're either going to be earthly minded or heavenly minded. We know people that are earthly minded. Just walk outside here and talk to people. Talk to whoever you want. They'll talk to you about what it is to achieve and to aspire for greatness and do better than everybody else. We know about them. But this is what God desires of you and me. This is what God desires of us, to grow in maturity. Let me ask you this question. In heaven, what do you think we're going to be dealing with? You think this is the wisdom that we'll have in heaven? This is the wisdom that we'll have in heaven. Pure, peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy, full of good fruits, without partiality, without hypocrisy. Are we at the place where we're this. No. I mean, I'm just trying to be honest. I'm not. I'm still working on this. And I think if you're honest, you'd say the same thing. We're still working on this. Maybe we're here. Hopefully we are. Make sure that you are wise, not before man, but before God. Don't be a respecter of persons. Don't be partial. Don't be partial with others. Don't, it's funny because partiality works both ways. You can either be partial to others or allow others to be partial to you. Don't allow it. Don't allow others to value you in any way outside of God. But don't value others in any other way than how God values us. Let's go to the Lord in prayer.